Today, Google held their Made by Google event where they announced a whole bunch of new products, from the new Pixel phones with the 9, the 9 Pro, the 9 Pro Fold 2, very long name, and the new Pixel Buds with the Pixel Buds Pro 2s. But what I'm here to talk about is the new Google Pixel Watch 3, because a lot has changed with this new watch, and it's pretty interesting this time around, though there are some things that kind of stayed the same. I was lucky enough to be invited out to Google's New York location last week, where I got to go hands-on with all of these new devices, from the phones to the Buds and the new Pixel Watch 3. And on top of that, I was also invited to their California location where they do their Made by Google event for even more hands-on time. So in this video today, we're going to talk about all the new features and specs of the new Google Pixel Watch 3, and I'll share some of my experience with my limited time using these things. Keep in mind, this is not going to be any sort of in-depth review kind of video. This is really a high-level first look. Here's what they do, here's what I think kind of video, and a full in-depth review will be coming down the road. So in order to not miss that, I suggest you go down and hit that subscribe button right now so you don't forget. With that out of the way, let's get down to brass tacks here and talk about probably one of the biggest changes to come to the Pixel Watch 3, and that it is now available in 2 sizes. So the original size of the Pixel Watch 2, that was last year's model, was 41 millimeters in diameter, and a lot of people complained that that 41 millimeters was a little bit too small for like average to larger wrists. So this time around with the Pixel Watch 3, there are 2 sizes. You can get that same 41 millimeter form factor if you have smaller wrists and you prefer that size, or if you're like me and like a bigger watch, they have a new 45 millimeter form factor, which is pretty similar to something I'm wearing here. This is actually a Garmin Forerunner 965. And just to get out of the way, let's talk about pricing. The smaller 41 millimeter form factor will come in at $349 here in the USA, and that is the base model with Wi-Fi only. If you do want the cellular connectivity with LTE, you'll have to pay $100 more for $449, and that'll get you all the bells and whistles. Now, when it comes to the bigger model, it is $50 more across the board, so $399 for the Wi-Fi version and $499 for LTE. So you're basically just paying $50 for a larger display and a bigger battery. When it comes to the aesthetic and the actual design of the Pixel Watch 3, it looks pretty much identical to the previous Pixel Watch 2. There's some minor tweaks here and there, but largely, if you're looking at these from a distance, it would be really hard to tell them apart unless you absolutely knew what you were looking for. Another big change to the Pixel Watch 3 is that even with the smaller model, it gets a bigger display. So the smaller model is the same 41 millimeter form factor, but they actually shrunk down the bezels around the perimeter of the display by 16%. So it's works out to be about a millimeter less on the bezel. And what that adds is about 2 millimeters to the size of the actual display. The larger model, however, with the 45 millimeter form factor, gets a much bigger display. That display has 40% more real estate than the last generation. Both of these models, both the smaller and bigger, get a brighter display as well, and they can now boost up to a peak brightness of 2000 nits, which is insanely bright and more than most people need. Even out in like super bright direct sunlight, you'll have no problem reading either one of these displays. On the topic of displays, there's also another new feature when it comes to brightness, and that's for dark situations with its minimum brightness. It can now go all the way down to about 1 nit, which is super dim, and this is most useful when you're sleeping or you're in a movie theater or something like that. You don't want a super bright thing on your wrist, but you still want to be able to tell the time, and that's where it becomes very useful. Speaking of battery life, this is where things get a little bit confusing and will need more testing and an in-depth review down the road, because at launch, Google is advertising that the larger 45 millimeter watch has 35% more battery compared to last year's model. However, there's been battery improvements on both models, and that is a variety of hardware improvements with a more efficient display and software improvements in Wear OS 5 that should make these new models more power efficient. When it comes to battery life though, the specs are a little bit vague, and the only spec they're really promoting right now is that in battery saver mode, you can get up to 36 hours of battery life. And keep in mind, battery saver mode on these new Pixel watches is a bit different than other watches, where when you're in battery saver mode, they still collect things like your health and wellness data, like your heart rate and step count and things like that. They just turn off other features, like they make the display a little bit dimmer, they turn off the always on display, and they make sacrifices in other areas, but not health and wellness. So that is kind of nice to see. And when it comes to power saving, there's also a new auto bedtime mode that will actually detect when you fall asleep and will do certain things to conserve battery life by turning off the always on display, reducing notifications, and dimming down the display automatically. And auto bedtime mode will also disable itself when you wake up in the morning. So this is something you probably won't even notice, but it should conserve battery life down the road. But again, this is not my full in-depth review, and until I actually get these watches in hand and am able to test them out, out, it's kind of hard to say what kind of battery life you'll get in everyday use, and more importantly, in an activity when you're actually using the GPS chip inside the watch. And finally, on the topic of battery life, these new watches will also charge a lot faster. Google claims that the Pixel Watch 3 will charge 20% faster than the Google Pixel Watch 2, and that's always nice to see when you just want to get a quick charge on the go. Now let's move into some of the health and fitness tracking features. So there's a whole lot going on here under the hood on the Pixel Watch 3 in the software. So first up is Google's new workout builder. Within your watch or directly on your phone, you can actually build custom workouts that can have custom segments like a warm-up and cool-down phase. It can also add targets for calories or distance and pace. There's also a new AI-driven workout builder that works within the Fitbit app on your phone. It will actually create workouts based on your goals, and it will also use your daily wellness data to make workout suggestions. The nice thing about the new workout builder in the Fitbit app is that it also ties into the actual activity when you're out on the run by providing a bunch of guidance during your activity. So during your run, you'll see that there's a little gauge on the left side of the screen that appears when you're doing a workout. It will indicate if you're on track or you're too high or you're too low in terms of your target pace. And this will adjust in real time as you're moving during that activity. Speaking of workout tracking, let's talk about the optical heart rate sensor on the new Google Pixel Watch 3. Now, mechanically, looking at the optical heart rate sensor and asking some of the people at Google, it turns out that this is actually the exact same optical heart rate sensor package that we saw on the Google Pixel Watch 2. However, even though the heart rate sensor itself is very similar to the Google Pixel Watch 2, Google claims that they've improved heart rate sensing accuracy during running activities. And they claim to improve the accuracy by using software enhancements and optimizations to rule out like cadence, for example, being confused with your heart rate. Moving right along to advanced running metrics, and this is an area that Google and Fitbit always lacked. They gave you the basics like your pace and your distance and your GPS track and stuff like that, but not much more when it comes to more advanced metrics like cadence and stride length. Well, I'm happy to report that they've added those as well. Now within the Fitbit app on your phone and directly on your watch, after you complete an activity, you will see running cadence, stride length, ground contact time, and vertical oscillation and vertical ratio. These advanced running metrics can be hard to understand for a lot of people out there that are just casual runners. Like, what do you do with vertical oscillation? Most people don't know. The nice thing though is that within the Fitbit app on your phone, it will actually display a graph that shows your range from each activity you've done of each metric along the way and any improvements that you've made as you train. In a way, just trying to make these advanced metrics more digestible to the average user, which I do appreciate. Hey, quick interruption. If you're finding this video fun or useful or entertaining or anything, please consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below because that really helps me out. Okay, back to the video. Okay, now that we've talked advanced running metrics, let's talk about all of the other training metrics available in this new Google Pixel Watch 3. We've got the readiness score, the cardio load, and target load. Now, readiness score, if you're familiar, is something that's not new to the Pixel Watch 3. However, it has changed quite a bit because in the past, the readiness score required a subscription to access. So if you had a Google Pixel Watch 2 and you wanted to see your readiness score, you had to subscribe to Fitbit Premium in order to unlock it. And now everybody will have access to the readiness score, which I think is a huge upgrade. And not only is the readiness score now free, it's also been upgraded to be more insightful. If you're unfamiliar, the readiness score will give you a score from 0 to 100 to indicate how ready you are to take on the day ahead. And you'll see the readiness score as soon as you wake up because there's a new morning brief feature that will show you a variety of different metrics when you wake up in the morning, from your sleep to your weather for the day ahead and your readiness score as well. The readiness score is based on a variety of factors, including your HRV, your resting heart rate, and your recent sleep metrics. And this will all be displayed within the Fitbit app alongside other related metrics like cardio load. And if you're wondering what cardio load is, this is another new feature coming to the Pixel Watch 3. And this is a measurement of how hard your heart is working during training. Cardio load here is a little bit different because it doesn't only take your activities into account when it's building up your score, it also takes in your all-day load from regular activities. Let's talk about target load. So target load is your personalized daily target for your training load. And again, the target load is also based on a variety of factors, including your readiness score and your previous day of activities. So for example, if you have a high training load and a low readiness score, your target load for that day might indicate that you should probably take a rest day or take it easy go for a walk or something like that, and maybe skip that long workout. Let's move on to a couple of other features that Google included specifically for running and doing outdoor activities. First up, this is another welcome addition, offline Google Maps. You can now easily sync maps from your Google Pixel phone to your Google Pixel Watch, and they'll save internally to the storage of the watch. That means if you go for a run without your phone and you want to find your way back home, or you want to find the closest coffee shop or something like that, you'll be able to access that directly on your watch without your phone nearby. Another new feature coming to the Google Pixel Watch 3 is the ability to broadcast your heart rate from your watch. So a lot of other devices out there, from the Apple Watch to these Garmins to Coros watches, basically all of them have the ability to broadcast your heart rate from the sensor on the back of the watch to nearby devices. The reason why you'd want to do this is, for example, if you're at the gym, you're using a treadmill, you want to broadcast your heart rate directly to the treadmill so you don't have to keep looking at your wrist to see what you're doing and what your heart rate is. You can do that now with the Google Pixel Watch 3. Now, this broadcast heart rate thing is only one-way communication though, and there's still no external sensor support on the Google Pixel Watch 3. So if you have a Bluetooth heart rate sensor, chest strap, or an armband, or a power meter for your bike, still not compatible with the Pixel Watch 3. And on the topic of running and ease of use, they've also added another nice to have, and that's media controls within the workout app. That means when you're out on a run and you want to pause or play the song that you're listening to on your earbuds directly on your watch, you can simply swipe over once from your workout interface and get to a little screen where you can pause, play, skip tracks, and even adjust your volume without leaving your activity. Now let's talk about all of the new Google integrations, because a big part of buying a Google Pixel Watch is getting into their ecosystem. So now directly on your watch, you'll be able to access your Nest doorbell. That means if someone rings your doorbell and you've got your hands full, you can simply look at your watch and actually see a live feed of video coming from your Nest doorbell. Really cool. Not only that, but you can simply tap a little microphone icon directly on the watch and actually have a two-way conversation with the person at your front door without picking up your phone or doing anything else, right on your watch. Really cool. On top of that, there's also a new Google TV remote built right into the Pixel Watch 3, so you can pause and play what's going on your TV right from your watch. And with a Google Pixel phone, there's also new integrations like Instant Unlock. That means using the ultra-wideband chip within the watch, it'll automatically know that the watch is on your wrist and you're nearby your phone, so you don't need to do any sort of face unlock or fingerprint or nothing like that. You simply just pick up your phone, it will be unlocked because of the proximity to your watch. And finally, the new Google Pixel Watch 3 can also replace your car keys. The Pixel Watch will be able to pop your trunk, unlock your car, and even start the engine remotely directly from your watch instead of using your key. At launch, that car key replacement thing only works with a couple of manufacturers, including BMW and Mini, but I can assume as time moves on, we'll see more manufacturers come on board. So that's all of the new features on the new Pixel Watch 3, the new sizes, the new health and wellness features, the new integrations. There's a lot to cover there. Now that we've run through it all, I just want to share my thoughts and opinions on this new Pixel Watch and what I think about it after handling it and learning a lot more about it. So from a high level, without diving too much into the weeds, this does feel like sort of an iterative update. Like the hardware is very similar, except for getting that additional size with the larger 45mm form factor, which I do appreciate and actually makes it a viable option for me personally, because in the past, I always found that the Google Pixel Watch 2 was just a little bit too small in my opinion. I also really appreciate how they handled the readiness score, the cardio load, and the target load, and how they're all tied together instead of being entirely separate metrics. With all that being said, there are still a lot of questions to be answered about the Google Pixel Watch 3. First of all, the battery life. Another question to be answered is GPS accuracy, because nowhere in all this press material and launch event stuff did they talk about their GPS accuracy and how it's been improved. And the final question to be answered is going to be with the software. A lot of the new features of the Pixel Watch 3 boil down to the software, from the cardio load to the readiness score and all of that. And I have to assume all of that will be trickling down via a software update to the older Pixel Watch models as well. Google is really good about software updates, but there is a fine line on what's hardware and what's software. And they could very well say that a feature is a hardware feature and that it's unable to trickle down. We're gonna have to wait and see what features actually make it from the Pixel Watch 3 to the Pixel Watch 2 or even the Pixel Watch 1. But all of those questions will have to wait for my in-depth review down the road. And just as a reminder, if you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below so you don't miss that video coming in the very near future. And while you're down there, check out all the links in the description of this video down below that'll link over to the new Google Pixel Watch 3, the new Pixel Buds Pro 2, the Pixel Pro phones, and all the other devices I talked about in this video. And after you check out those product links, also check out the links over to my other social media accounts like my podcast, my threads, my Instagram, and of course my merch store over at chasetosummit.com, where you can buy a sweet t-shirt like this. It's actually cooler in the back. See that? And that's really it for this one. Just a first look, hands-on, initial impressions video. Hopefully you found it helpful, and I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye.